Okay, I've calmed down a bit now, so I can say this. I can go forward with this video in a relatively calm manner, because actually the subject is about technology. Um, I've just had a bit of a tantrum, in all honesty. Lost my rag because I had a password reset issue on PayPal. Not for the first time either. I've had this problem on other companies. What I find is I write down in a secure place my passwords so I remember them, and I tend to use the same password with all the sort of websites I use, so it's easy to remember, and I know I haven't forgotten it. So when you get that message saying, have you forgotten your password, I'm thinking, no, you just won't let me in. And you basically end up going in circles, and then it asks you to send a verification code to your phone, then that won't send. Then you have to go to the email and it hasn't come through, and you have to try again, and it just feels like you're going in circles. Now I've eventually got in, but I don't know if, when I log out, will I be able to get in again. And it does matter for me because my income partially depends on PayPal, my meager income as it currently is. So it's important. It's not a trivial thing. But I want to use this to sort of address a wider issue about technology. Now, firstly, I'm not going to be a hypocrite, right? I use technology. I'm using it right now to upload this video. Technology can have many wonderful merits. It can be great for medicine. It could be great for science. It could be great for connecting people. So obviously technology has made great improvements to human society. That goes without saying. And I'm talking about digital technology here. But I also think that we can be overly reliant on it. And I think that it's a fallacy to say that it's always more simple than good old-fashioned human communication or the alternatives. Now, obviously, if you're typing out a novel and you've got an old typewriter, it's retro, it feels good. But if you make a mistake, you'd have to start all over again. Whereas on Word document, you just delete it. So there are obvious benefits to modern technology that you wouldn't have had in the past, and it would have been past frustrations that are not currently here. But what you don't get with technology of the past is the security issue. You don't have the never-ending necessity of passwords, of accounts, of having to create an account just to go for a job application rather than just applying for something directly is very irritating, because it's just yet more bureaucracy. That's how I see it. I see this sort of thing as digital bureaucracy, and it's incredible the effect it can have. It could be, I hide it well, but in the sense that I don't tend to show my anger in front of other people. But I'll admit, when this plays up, passwords and resets and all this shit, I can be infuriated. I can really lose my rag. And I know I'm not the only one. A lot of people feel this way. So it kind of makes me wonder, the people who design these things, can they not go through it and see what people are seeing? It's like a lot of people in the technology world, I think the marketing seems to be on what's, the most impressive technology, what's the glitziest, what has the most kind of tools, what has the most, things that you can use. But there seems to be less focus on making things simple. And I don't think you need to be a Luddite to experience problems. I mean, I don't consider myself a total technophobe. I could do quite a lot of basic things. I could do a Word document. I can send attachments. There's a lot I can do. So I don't consider myself a complete technophobe. But I do feel that there's a sort of reliance on it that I dislike. And I dislike the way, if you experience problems, I find a lot of technical people don't really have an understanding of the frustration people face. I've had experience before where IT engineers have sort of, or when I've bought a new laptop, this one I actually got online, it was delivered here, because the extra charges of setting everything up was significantly more, and luckily it managed to more or less, it wasn't too complicated. I'd done that myself, but I find there's a slight sort of, how can I put it, a superiority, and it always makes me uncomfortable when someone's talking in a language, like digital language, and I'm thinking, can you just say this in plain English? What does that mean? And it's almost like, I wouldn't say bullying, that's the wrong word, that's really not the right word, but it's like they've kind of got a power over you because you rely on them, but they're not trying to. It's a bit like doctors, I'd make this analogy, it's a bit like doctors who tell a patient the really scientific name for whatever condition they're going through without just laying it out in plain English what it is, or at least in a more simplified way. And this is true of any field. If put it this way, there's subjects I know a lot about. If I was explaining them to someone who was interested, who wanted to know, but they were a complete layman, they didn't, they only knew the basics, I wouldn't go into the really complicated aspect of that. And I think a lot of people in IT, they don't really understand that for a lot of people, when things aren't working out, you need to speak in the most basic way possible. You need to just say, this is what this does. Not abbreviate everything, just talk in plain English. And it can, in terms of health, put it this way, Japan and South Korea are two of the most digitally connected countries in the world. I think South Korea is actually number one. It's the most digitally enhanced country in the world. And yet the suicide rate in Japan and South Korea is pretty high. Now, I'm not saying that's a direct consequence, but it could be that there is more pressure on people. I know that the work pressure in those cultures is very high, but it could also be that, it could be young people who are taking their lives because they feel they can't compete with the fashion accessories of digital technology. I don't know, I'm just putting it out there. I don't know that for a fact, but it wouldn't surprise me. You can imagine a kid from a poorer background, and this is true anywhere in the world. Their parents can't afford the top smartphone, and so he or she stands out in the classroom, and then they're picked on. So it's this thing about over-reliance on technology. I want the basics. I want, my laptop to be able to have internet access and to be able to have the word processor and to upload videos. I'm not looking for much else, but when I've tried to set, when I've been in Curry's PC World, and I'm not kind of smearing all the staff there, I don't want to do that, because I've had polite and helpful staff as well, but I've also had the experience of, I'll put it this way, with IT engineers, when I've approached people in the past, and I say, well, look, basically I want the internet back, and they look at you like, they don't seem to understand that that's what everyone wants. If you have a working computer, the first thing everyone wants is an internet connection, and sometimes they don't seem to grasp that. They'll focus on other things and think that I just want. Can you reassure me you can get the internet working here? So anyway, without going off on a tangent, the problem with digital technology, it's like a whole other language. I know a lot of the basics, but it's a very uncomfortable feeling that you're powerless when things are going wrong and you're relying on them, because we do rely on them. I don't want to overly rely on them, but some things, when I'm being paid from the other side of the world, I need PayPal. There's no other way around it. I can't get cash in hand that way. So I rely on it. So then when I lose this connection, when I have to go through the whole reset process, it causes a lot of anxiety because I need that. So that's what I'm trying to drive at. And I'll just conclude with this idea that digital technology makes life simpler. I would disagree with that. Sometimes it does, but not all the time. And very often it can induce a lot of stress that we wouldn't have had 30 or 40 years ago. Yes, there would have been other stresses then, but it just creates a dynamic that wouldn't have existed in the past. And I think that we need to just recognize that. And the people who design these things, what they need to do is not just design them and say, oh, this will work, this is how the reset thing works. They need to actually experience personally what it's like, because I think empathy would help them to develop a better recovery system. It just makes no sense to me. Anyway, let me know your thoughts. I mean, just another example, right? Coffee shops, the online loyalty cards. How is that more beneficial than a simple stamp card? How? It's not. You have to go online and once again create a unique account, which means passwords, which means more bureaucracy. It's not more simple at all. It's just not.